internationally renowned musician who beat legends to take home the Grammy, he exemplifies greatness in his craft. Today, he has 4 feature films, 15 albums, over 3,000 commercials, and multiple awards and honors to his credit. He is also a passionate environmental conservationist and is the ambassador of Earth Day Network India. Presenting Grammy Award winner, US Billboard #1 artist and environmental conservationist Ricky Kej.
Thank you so much for having me on your show, Preethi.
Hi Ricky, welcome to the Talk with Preethi Shenoy. It's such an honor for us to have you with us.
Thank you so much.
Okay, so to begin with, you relinquished a career in dentistry to pursue a career in music. So was music always a choice or did it happen by chance?
Actually, there was no relinquishing a career in dentistry simply because there was never any plan for me to actually become a career dentist. It's just something that my parents forced me to do. So when I was in my 12th standard, that's when we have to make a strong decision as to what we want to do for the rest of our lives. And I went to my father and I told him that, that I want to be a musician and music is all that I want to do till the day I die. And I want music to be my hobby, my profession, my career, my everything. And my father looked at me as if I was absolutely crazy. So that's why, after a lot of fighting and a lot of heartache, a lot of pretty much fireworks at home, my parents and I made a deal that I would have to finish off a degree in dental surgery. And once I get my degree, my life was my own. So that's exactly what I did. I went to college for 5 years. I studied dentistry. But in the evenings, I would do music, pretty much professionally. I would be in studios, I would be recording jingles, I would be doing commercials. And as soon as I got my degree, very ceremoniously, I went to my father, gave him the degree certificate, and I told him that now my life is my own. I need to pursue a career in music. So dentistry was more like a speed breaker on the path to my career in music. So it was never relinquishing a dentistry career. It was just about, making my parents happy and allowing them to do whatever I wanted to do.
Okay.
Yeah.
So do you think it's important to be formally trained to pursue a career in music?
Definitely, because I started off as being a self-taught musician. So that's how I started off. And even though I felt that I was pretty good at it, but then I started realizing that, if you want to make a career in this particular arts profession, that is in music, it's very, very important to know the rules before you can break them. And also it's very important to understand the language of music, which is from a more academic sense, simply because it gives you a lot more confidence and you can communicate with your collaborators from all over the world in a much better fashion because you're speaking their language, you understand how to write music, you understand the rules behind music and things like that, so you don't look like a complete buffoon when you're speaking to them. Right. So that's why I feel that even for the younger generation who wants to pursue a career in music, it's very, very important for them to actually go to classes and and get a degree in music and have a formal education. And it's not just for music, it's for any art form. It's very important to study it.
And after your Grammy win, you got a very rare opportunity to meet Prime Minister Narendra Modi.
Yeah.
How did you use that opportunity?
Of course, when I got the invitation to actually meet him, my wife and I actually got the invitation to meet him. We thought it's just going to be a regular photo op of 10 minutes and congratulations, let's take a picture. But it ended up being an hour-long philosophical discussion where he kept pushing me that, your true passion in life is conservation. So why don't you dedicate your life and your music to this? And to this singular cause, and that is pretty much the push that I needed. There are so many issues in India, nobody's writing music about it, so music is not coming from the heart. Music is either a love song or an item song, which is part of a movie script. So that was the push that I needed, and I realized that every piece of music that comes out of me has to be about the environment because that is something that I'm very passionate about. So that was pretty much the outcome of that. And also I made an album called Shanti Samsara through that, and and that was pretty much the outcome of that particular meeting.
So talking about Shanti Samsara, so for that album you collaborated with over 500 musicians. Correct. From across 40 countries.
Correct.
Right? So what other types of collaboration are important in order for you to spread the message of environmental awareness?
So it's, as you mentioned, it's not just musical collaborations, which are of course extremely important, but it's also other collaborations where I collaborate with NGOs, I collaborate with scientists, I collaborate with legislators, with lawmakers, policy makers, change makers all over the world, and try to bring about this message because to combat the issue of climate change, to combat the ecological problems, it needs to be an interdisciplinary and multidisciplinary approach to actually solving these issues. And that's what I am aiming at, like, bringing together different disciplines and working towards a common goal.
So how do you view the connection between music and nature? It's a beautiful synergy between the two. So how do you view that connection?
So along with being a musician all my life, I've always been a very strong conservationist and environmentalist. So my music was reflecting this from time to time, but not entirely. Because I was a lot into, as you mentioned, doing jingles and doing other stuff and working on various things of social impact and not just the environment. It's only after the Grammy that it's been only about the environment and only about nature. So the thing is that at an early stage, I did not understand it completely and I did not comprehend it completely. But for me, music and nature has always been the same thing. Of course, now I've got some comprehension of that, because how did music start off? Music started off as sounds within nature, sounds of the stream flowing, sounds of the wind, sounds of the birds chirping, animal sounds, that kind of stuff. And then later on, music became humans trying to imitate those sounds in a little more pleasing manner to the ear. Then musical instruments from objects found within nature, that like buckets of water and boxes of seeds and bamboo flutes and things like that. And it's only for the last 400 or 500 years that music has become academic with notes and scales and things like that. So that's why music and nature has always been one and the same for me.
So as a conservationist living in India, what challenges have you faced in educating the society on environmental awareness?
So I think India is a really important country when it comes to combating the effects of climate change, simply because we are still a developing nation. 1/3 of our country does not, pretty much 1/3 of our country, that's almost 400 million people, do not have access to a fantastic standard of living. Unlike a developed nation where everybody's got the luxury of flicking a switch and a light comes on. So imagine developing 1/3 of a country that's 400 million people, that is the entire population of America, from scratch in India. So we need to be far more environmentally conscious, because the Western countries have reached a stage of development by completely ruining the environment for the last 150 years and by having a massive carbon footprint. Whereas we can be far more intelligent, we can be far more compassionate, we can be far more responsible towards the environment by developing these 400 million people and set an example for the whole world. So of course there have been a lot of issues. One thing is that of course we need to raise the environmental consciousness among the people, so that the government gets elected for doing the right thing, or we elect and we vote for people in power who are environmentalists and who have got a green agenda. So that's why that is very important, and for this artists need to come together to actually raise the level of environmental consciousness. Then of course in India, one thing that I've seen, and which is a problem all over the world, is that we've lost our connection with the environment. For example, when we just switch on a tap of water, water flows, but we do not know where that water is coming from or how it is reaching us. When we're eating food, we do not know where that produce is coming from or how it has been grown, whether pesticides have been used, whether harmful fertilizers have been used, because we've lost that connection. So that is very important, that to bring that connection with people, with the environment, and understand that this is our basic things that we need to know.
Excellent. So as an adjunct professor at the prestigious National Institute of Advanced Studies, what research area are you focusing on?
So I was made a professor on an honorary base, so I actually do not teach anything over there. But the reason why I was made a professor, and I'm really grateful for that, is basically for my ability to communicate science through music. Because at the end of the day, when you are communicating the effects of climate change, and you're communicating species extinction, you're communicating air pollution, through your music, and that's what I do, and through my concerts. What I'm basically doing is that scientists come up with the data, scientists figure out what's wrong with our world, and I'm just communicating that through the emotional language of music to people to bring about action. Because there is data needs to be communicated, and then there needs to be action, and people need to be moved towards action. And I believe music is a very powerful language, because music is a very powerful language not just for communicating a message, but for retaining that message deep into the consciousness of a listener.
So talking about concerts, you've performed at multiple concert venues, right? And apart from that, you've also performed at the UN General Assembly and at the Vidhan Sauda.
Yes.
So how different was the experience to perform at a venue that's not a stereotypical concert venue?
I love those, because the thing is that it's always very important to perform in places of great importance and places that are hallowed places. Like for example, when I performed, of course I've got the opportunity to perform twice at the UN General Assembly. The first time I went over there, I remember I went a previous day for my sound check and rehearsal. And it was absolutely amazing because you're standing at the same position where almost every single treaty has been signed in the world. Every world leader has stood over there for generations, and since the time the UN was formed. So it was of course a very, very good experience. And even the Vidhan Sauda, because that's pretty much the temple of democracy in our state, and it's a place where I've been going to from my childhood, and and admiring, and also performing to policy makers and change makers, as I mentioned, through the emotional language of music, makes a huge difference. So the two kind of concerts that I love doing, and the only kind of concerts that I do, are basically the top-down approach, that is performing to intimate audiences of world leaders and policy makers and legislators, people who can make a difference on a large scale. And then of course the larger concerts for people, just to raise the level of environmental consciousness and to reach out to the general masses of people.
So Ricky, to end this interview, what would be your message to aspiring musicians?
I would say always follow your heart. Being within your art form, as I mentioned, is not enough. You have to be doing something that you love within that art form. So it's very important to leave some headroom for doing stuff that you absolutely love, bringing out your own creativity, bringing out your own philosophies, your own beliefs through your art form. So that would be extremely important. Second thing would be that it's very important to have a formal education, because as I mentioned earlier in the interview, it's important to know the rules before you break them. So formal education is super important. And of course, do what you love, because there are always two things that can drive your life decisions. That is passion, and then there is fear. And if you let passion drive you, then you'll always be successful with whatever you do for your entire life.
Okay, excellent, awesome. So we have one last segment called Fast 5.
Fantastic.
So where all our viewers can get to know 5 light-hearted things about you, nothing serious. So my first one is, what is your favorite cuisine?
Favorite cuisine is the regular cuisine, that is dal, chawal and roti.
Okay, and your favorite gadget?
My favorite gadget is basically what I make my music on, my computer system.
And your favorite holiday destination?
And so my holiday destination would be where I would like to perform the most. So that's always been any of the United Nations offices, whether it's Geneva, whether it is Bangkok, or whether it is New York.
Your favorite recreational activity?
I guess besides making music, I love listening to music. So I'm a huge fan of music, and I love listening to music all the time, and I love watching movies. But this is also pretty much related to the work that I do. But nevertheless, watching movies and watching television is pretty much a recreational activity for me.
And the last one, your most prized possession?
That's difficult because I love everything that I have. I have a guitar that I've had for a very long time, so that would pretty much be my prized possession. Yeah.
Awesome, awesome. So lovely having you on our show, Ricky.
Thank you so much for having me.
More power to you.
And thank you
so much.
I must mention that one of my first ever interviews in my life was by you.
Yeah.
So it's nice that life has come full circle and you're interviewing me now. So thank you so much.
And it's amazing that you're doing so much for the environment. We need more people like you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ricky.
Thank you.
Thanks.